Hello, my name is Stephanie Raps, and this is my Teach One assignment for HAP 701 on the topic in Learning Module 12 SQL Review. There are three topics that I will be covering. One is relational databases, and then two, understanding tables, and three, basic SQL commands. Relational databases are an important concept to understand, and they're essentially a set of interconnected relationships or tables of information. They've actually been used for over 40 years, and they're the most widely used databases in the world. Essentially, they're a part of our everyday life, everywhere we are. From that online purchase that you make on Amazon, or the travel plans you're making for the holidays, or even when you go and pick up a book at your current library. And one common place we often use them are when we're watching TV on Netflix and we're browsing through various videos to decide what we want to watch. They're also used in a variety of different business settings to include a business, a government, education, and healthcare. On the bottom, you can see an example of a relational database in an education setting. To get a better understanding of tables, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on how relational databases are built. And here's an example of a very simple database to follow along with. So relational databases store information in relations, which users essentially perceive as a table. Each relation is composed of records or attributes or fields, essentially the same thing, but often used basically interchangeably. The physical order of records or fields in the table is completely immaterial. And each record in the table is identified by a field that contains a unique value. So you can see here where the unique ID is and how the columns and the rows of the table are set up. There are two characteristics of a relational database that allow the data to exist independent of the way it was physically stored in the computer, such as the user isn't required to know the physical location of the record to retrieve the data. This is unlike other types of databases, such as a network database or a hierarchical database, which you have to know the layout of the database and the structures to really retrieve the data. And the relationship model characterized relationships as one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. A relationship between a pair of tables is established through the matching of values of a shared field. As long as the user is familiar with the relationships between the tables in the database, he or she can do almost anything with in an unlimited number of ways. And you can actually access data from the tables that are directly related and from tables that are indirectly related. And now we move on to basic SQL commands. SQL, or Structured Query Language, is the standard language used to create, modify, maintain, and query relational databases. There are three components of a basic SQL query that you can see here on the second bullet, and they are select from statement, the where clause, the order by clause, and the order by clause. You can use the select statement to indicate the fields you want to use in the query, and the from clause to indicate the table in which you want to pull these fields from. And you can filter the records the query returns by imposing criteria against one or more of the fields with the where clause, and then sort the results in ascending or descending order with the order by clause. I gave you a basic template of how to complete this using those SQL commands in the third bullet there. On the screen, I have two examples of queries using these basic commands, pieces of these basic commands, and from the table that was on the previous slide. So the example on the left-hand side shows you what you would get if you use the select all, that star sign, from the table users. And you see there, it's basically just the entire table. All the attributes, all of the information within that table is shown. But if you modify that statement or expanded upon that statement on the right-hand side, you would see and you wanted to get a specific piece of information, this statement says select ID, which is that unique ID from the table users, where the name equals Bill. She gave some very specific pieces of information to pull back, commands to pull back this information, and you have just one criteria that meets that, and that is the unique ID 2 and the name Bill. So I wouldn't use the order by statement in this query because there's only one field, but the order by field definitely helps when you're looking at a lot of information to organize it and help interpret it. So these are very basic SQL commands. We've gone far beyond that, but I do believe it's important to see how these simple commands, what these simple commands look like using information from a very basic table. So we have covered what relational databases are, and we then took it into understanding what a table looks like in a relational database, and then I gave you some very basic commands to use. This concludes my presentation on SQL review for my Teach 1 assignment. Hopefully you enjoyed, and thank you very much.